everybody. I am in Venice, Italy. Italy's finest Italians. Here in Venice. There is water, there are Italians, and it is Italy. Welcome to Venice.
Venice, or Venezia in Italian, is a city in northeastern Italy and the capital of the Veneto region. Venice rests on 118 islands, separated by 150 canals. Many of the islands are knitted together with a series of 400 footbridges. Building Venice was an engineering marvel. Did y'all know that Venice, Italy was built on stilts? Yep, Venice, Italy is built on wooden stilts or piles. The Venetians drove thousands of wooden piles into the mud to create a solid foundation for their city. So they built a city on these stilts, and it's still standing, and it stood over 1,000 years. And it is sinking a little bit, but overall, it's still cool. Go visit it now before it's underwater. Venice, known as the City of Canals, the Floating City, and Serenissima, is arguably one of Italy's most picturesque cities. With its winding canals, striking architecture, and beautiful bridges, Venice is a popular destination to travel. Situated in the Adriatic Sea, Venice has always traded extensively with the Byzantine Empire and the Middle East. By the late 13th century, Venice was the most prosperous city in all of Europe. At the peak of its power and wealth, it had 36,000 sailors operating 3,300 ships, dominating Mediterranean commerce. There are no cars in Venice. I know it sounds kind of obvious, but if you think about it, there are no cars in Venice. Once you reach the city center, you won't spot any cars. Boats essentially take the place of vehicles in central Venice, and canals take the places of roads. A gondola tour at sunset is perfect romantic activity in Venice. Honestly, rather than a gondola, I did a taxi. Like you'll see right here, this is what we're talking about. This is the boat taxi. And it's got a great little bench in the back. There's seating inside and it's covered. I know some people want the gondola experience, but I'm telling you, this is the way to go. You can stand up in the back, have your arms on the roof, and we just went to the canal and we asked one of the taxi drivers to drive us around for an hour. It was my favorite thing we did on the entire Italy trip. We had the sunset cruise all around the city. It was amazing. Highly, highly recommend it. Like, for real, if you do it, put it in the comments and tell me how good it was, and you're welcome if you thank me for it. Although there are a ton of bridges in Venice, only 4 bridges cross the Grand Canal. So if you're lucky enough to be spending a couple days in Venice, consider making it a point of crossing all 4. I don't know if I did, I just wandered around. It's really fun just to wander around Venice. It's just so beautiful. And I just listened to videos like this that explain stuff to me, like what I'm looking at. Like Venice was once an independent empire. Did you know that? The independent Republic of Venice lasted from 697 AD until 1797 AD, more than 1,000 years. You might be able to tell by walking around, but the Venice Empire was extremely wealthy. Venice was once the location of the heart of trade between Europe, Central Asia, and the Middle East, and it became extremely wealthy in the process, at one time commanding respect as the wealthiest city in Europe. When you walk around Venice, you will see a lot of Venetian masks, but Venetian masks aren't just souvenirs. Once used as a part of daily life to conceal the wearer's identity during parties that would have been looked down on by the church, especially in the Middle Ages. Venice's masks are intertwined with the city's culture. That is so dope. They all had masks on so they could be deviants and have no one really know that they're deviants. I dig it. Today they're mostly associated with the Venetian Carnival, but the masks actually have more than 1,000-year-old history in the city. Here's a fun little fact. Marco Polo was Venetian. Marco Polo. Born in 1254 to a wealthy merchant family, the famous explorer Marco Polo originally hailed from the island states. He was a rich kid. Kind of takes it away a little bit. I feel like when you realize, when someone's like kind of broke and they come up, you're like, I don't know, it's a little different. He was born on 3rd and then he crossed home. That's fine. So you can tour past his old home, although you're not allowed to go inside. Also, I know you will see a lot of gondolas around the city, but do you know around 400 gondolas float throughout the city's canals today? At one point in time, around 10,000 gondolas populated the city's canals. In previous centuries, wealthy Venetians used gondolas like their counterparts in Rome or Paris used a horse and carriage. Gondolas also used to be used for transporting various goods and for public transportation, but modern motorboats have taken over those duties now. Today, virtually all of Venice's 400 remaining gondolas are used for tourism. While you are in Venice, though, make sure you check out the Rialto Market, which is nearly 1,000 years old. The Rialto Market is located just steps from the famous Rialto Bridge, and it was founded in 1097, and has been an essential part of Venice's cultural landscape ever since. During the Venetian Empire, the Rialto market was one of the largest and most powerful in the world. Spices, jewels, food, cloth, and animals from the east and west were sold to buyers from Europe and beyond. So when you're walking around Venice, make sure you make your way to the St. Mark's Basilica, alright? And look on top and you will see these famous horses that are on top, and they are actually not Venetian. Story about them is they have stood on top of St. Mark's Basilica for hundreds of years. And while the horses of St. Mark are associated with Venice, they're not originally from the city. They were acquired in 1254 when the Venetians took the horses from then Constantinople in the aftermath of the Fourth Crusade. They stole them, they ganked them. Theories on the horses suggest that they date to the 4th century BCE and may have originated in Egypt or Rome. You can visit the horses on the interior of the second floor of the St. Mark's Basilica. In the 1980s, the horses were moved inside to protect them from the elements, but they did put replicas outside in Piazza San Marco in their place. But when you're looking at the ones outside, they aren't the real ones. You gotta go inside to go see those. Here's a pretty dark fact about Venice. St. Mark, you know from the Bible, Mark, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John guy. I'm not religious, but I know that. St. Mark spent most of his life in Alexandria, Egypt. His body was brought to Venice 8 centuries after his death in AD 68. Venice's ruling class wanted St. Mark as a patron saint for their economic status, so they arranged to smuggle his body from Egypt. While stealing the body, the thieves hid the body under pork and vegetables. Once they arrived in Venice on January 31st, 828, Mark's body was kept in Doge Giustiniano's palace. When the Doge died, his widow was ordered to build the Basilica di San Marco to house Mark. Fear that St. Mark's body would be stolen again continued after the death of Doge. According to a French monk, Mark's body was safely stored in one of the great pillars. However, when the chapel of Basilica di San Marco was rebuilt in 1063, St. Mark's body could not be found. 30 years after this, it is said that St. Mark's body reappeared, with his arm appearing from an old pillar. After reappearing, St. Mark's body was finally put in a sculptured coffin below the high altar in the chapel. So they basically stole this body to have a reason for people to come visit Venice. That was like a religious reason, because that's what was pushing a lot of different cities at the time to go visit them, as they had all this, religion really ran Italy. Like there was the Vatican, there's just all these churches, and Venice was still trying to get in on that. So they basically grave robbed this guy and brought him there. They knew that people would show up and go pray and go pay respects to the guy. So yeah, pretty crazy. All right, guys, that is it. That is my trip to Venice. On the skip or trip scale, 1 being skip, 10 being trip, I totally give Venice, Italy 10. Trip. Take a trip. Go to Venice. It is so worth it. 1 day is fine. I recommend 2 days. If you can spend one night in Venice itself at night when the last ferry leaves, it kind of quiets down and only the people that are on the islands stay there overnight. It's a different vibe. So if you could, I recommend 1 night, 2 days in Venice. Again, on the skip or trip scale, Venice is an easy 10 trip. Thanks you guys for watching. Subscribe for more information like this every week. It really helps the channel. It really helps me. Peace.